When non-governmental agents, including religious cults, terrorists, and individuals, use bioweapons, they are referred to as bioterrorism. Some people consider this even more disconcerting because they are not monitored or regulated by any international agency. As an example, in 1981 in the United States, members of a religious commune, followers of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, intentionally contaminated 10 restaurant salad bars in an Oregon community with Salmonella enterica. More than 750 people fell ill with Salmonella in a community in which fewer than 5 cases per year are usually reported. This was intended as a dress rehearsal for a plan that would cause an epidemic on an election day that would influence the outcome of the county's elections, allowing for the Rajneesh cult members to take over the city council. This, of course, didn't work because it was identified that the Salmonella was unusual, and healthcare workers, including the CDC, began to monitor the town prior to Election Day. The terrorist threat posed by radical groups was again demonstrated when sarin gas was released into a Tokyo subway. Although notably, sarin gas is a chemical weapon, not a bioweapon. So your book, though it refers to this attack and the 11 people that died as a result, is not a true bioweapon. However, in another incident on May 5th, 1995, Larry Harris, who is a septic tank and well water inspector in Ohio, was able to purchase and receive 3 vials of Yersinia pestis, which is the bacterium that causes the plague, from a lab known as the American Type Culture Collection, which stores various strains of bacteria, including pathogens, for researchers. It was never understood what his intent was, but the fact that all he needed was a credit card and a false letterhead made a lot of people concerned about the ability for a typical citizen or individual to gain access to these various deadly strains. As a result of the potential concern of bioterrorism, the US government and other governmental agencies have decided that there are some microbes and pathogens that are more likely to cause and lead to bioterrorism threats than others. These include anthrax, smallpox, the plague, and botulism. We're going to cover these and review them next. Anthrax, or Bacillus anthracis, is the most likely bioweapon to be used and is thought to be in the arsenal or in the process of being developed in at least 10 countries. Anthrax is a rapidly progressing acute infectious disease, and it's caused by a bacterium that can form endospores. Remember that anthrax can infect ranches, cattle, sheep, and other mammals, and thus be transmitted to people as well. The ability of Bacillus anthracis to form endospores makes anthrax a particularly intriguing choice of weapon of mass destruction because endospores can be disseminated by bombs, artillery shells, aerial sprayers, and other methods. Endospores are highly resistant to various disinfectants and biological control measures, including heat, and they are very difficult to kill and last for many, many years. In 1942, in fact, the British used Gruniard Island off of the coast of Scotland as a site for anthrax experiments. The soil, as a result, remained contaminated with Bacillus anthracis endospores for more than 50 years, making the area unsafe for human entry. The anthrax endospores eventually had to be cleaned off of the island by spraying with tons and tons of gallons of formaldehyde, followed by seawater. Human and animal lungs and skin provide appropriate conditions for formation of the disease. Bacillus anthracis is very easy to grow, has a high fatality rate if left untreated. Treatments required within 1 to 2 days of exposure. And as mentioned, Bacillus anthracis produces endospores that remain alive for many years. The endospores can be easily dispersed, and there's no easy indication of exposure, so many people can become infected and not realize it. There are 3 varieties of anthrax disease that can affect humans. The first that I've mentioned is cutaneous anthrax, which affects the skin. This is a natural way of acquiring anthrax because it can infect people that handle and come in close contact with infected animals. This is especially true of the leather tanning industry. About 20% of untreated cases result in death, but death is rare because antibiotic therapy is often prescribed prior to illness. Second, if you eat the anthrax endospores because it's been sprinkled on your food or in some drink, this is rare unless it occurs as a result of bioweapons, although even that's not been found to be used. But it can occur by ingestion of inadequately cooked or contaminated meat. Death occurs in 25 to 60% of untreated cases and usually results in food poisoning-like symptoms. But the inhalation anthrax is the most common type of anthrax used by bioweapons and bioterrorists. This poses the greatest threat because symptoms initially resemble a common cold and are thus not triggered or thought to be anything other than that. But it does progress to severe breathing problems and usually results in death only 1 to 2 days after the breathing problems commence. It also takes an incredibly small dose to kill a human being. Antibiotic therapy is effective, but it must be administered within the first 24 to 48 hours, which is prior to the severe breathing problems and diagnosis usually occurring. If left untreated, inhalation anthrax has a fatality rate of over 90%. It's as a result of some of these concerns that in 1998, there was a plan by the U.S. Secretary of Defense and the Pentagon to vaccinate all U.S. military service members. This vaccine plan had some major problems, including the fact that the immunization schedule includes 5 or 6 shots acquired over a period of a year and a half. The full immunity to this microbe doesn't occur until the year and a half is up, and an annual booster is required afterwards. In addition, the vaccine was shown to work against cutaneous anthrax, but not the type of anthrax most commonly used by bioweapons, the inhalation anthrax. Next, we'll talk about a second possible bioweapon, and that's smallpox. Smallpox is the first infectious disease of humans to be completely eradicated from the natural world. However, it is now a top bioweapon candidate. That's because that while vaccines used to be regularly used by people around the world to protect themselves against smallpox, they are not used at all anymore. In 1972, the United States stopped vaccinating its population because smallpox was declared eradicated from the US. And in 1979, vaccines were stopped disseminating worldwide because it was declared eradicated worldwide. Since that happened, we now have a world population under the age of 50 that is susceptible to smallpox. The virus still exists, however. It exists in freezers under lock and key at designated facilities in Russia and the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia. But the problem is that many people think that the virus still exists in the hands of potential terrorists and unreliable foreign governments. The first week of illness of the smallpox is the most infectious time. because the high number of viral particles are found in the saliva, and saliva droplets released during talking, laughing, coughing, or sneezing are what primarily transmit smallpox to begin with. The early symptoms of smallpox are also nonspecific, which means people can go out and not realize that they're infected with smallpox itself. The fatality rate for the more virulent strains of smallpox is about 30%, and so spread of this disease can end up killing many people. Unfortunately, the smallpox vaccine does have serious side effects, so just giving people the smallpox vaccine is not an ideal means to combat this particular bioweapon. For instance, it kills 1 out of every 1 million people. So if all Americans were vaccinated tomorrow, we could have about 300 or so people die in the United States today just from the vaccine. This is why the smallpox vaccine is no longer given, because it is not used to combat the smallpox virus, which is no longer in the natural population today. There are some countermeasures that the US government has developed to combat bioweapons. The use of bioweapons presents a unique set of challenges because an attack might not be immediately identifiable. And if the attack were to occur in a subway station, a train terminal, or an airport, the disease could spread within hours all over the world. In some cases, like smallpox, the disease can spread from person to person, making the initial exposure to the bioweapon increase exponentially in a short period of time. Knowledge of the bioweapon's release could also trigger chaos, panic, and general civil disorder, even without the spread of the disease itself. Bioterrorist attacks are directly targeted at human populations, and these can be really inexpensive, and so can be developed and used by many individuals, not just government agencies. The pathogen that's selected could be one that's not been seen in the population for a long time, which also means that the population could be particularly susceptible due to lack of immunity. Diagnosis can be delayed because the disease would most likely be one with the medical professionals have little or no familiarity, and the healthcare personnel in the meantime would be the most exposed, resulting in a population of individuals that would be at the front lines of fighting this bioweapon being the ones most likely dying from the infection. There are initiatives and strategic plans for coping with the potential bioweapons. And this includes deterrence by controlling access to handling of the dangerous pathogens, surveillance and rapid detection, medical and public health responses, including mass immunization and safe disposal of the deceased bodies, creation of a stockpile of pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and expansion of support and research and development to combat the potential bioweapons. In the next section, we're going to talk about anthrax as it was used in the aftermath of September 11th, 2001.